All right, welcome everyone. Today, we're diving into something that's really changing the game in the science classroom. You see, with AI, students can get answers to incredibly complex questions in like seconds. But the real challenge isn't finding the what anymore, it's teaching the why. We're going to talk about how to use AI not as some kind of answer key, but as a true lab partner, one that actually helps students think like real scientists. Let's get into it.
So, a question like this, it's a classic, right? It's the kind of thing that really forms the foundation of a science class. And the beauty of it is that there's no simple one-word answer. It forces students to really grapple with the evidence, to consider different models, and to even debate a little. But in our world now, a student can just ask a powerful AI and get a perfectly neat summary, completely bypassing that whole messy, critical thinking process. And that is the new challenge we're facing.
And that, right there, is the heart of what we're talking about today. When any AI can just give you the answer, the real goal of education has to shift, right? It's not about memorizing facts anymore. It's about mastering that fascinating, sometimes frustrating process of scientific reasoning. It's all about asking why. Okay, so here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll really define this new challenge AI presents. Then, we'll look at a different kind of AI that's actually built for learning. It's called NotebookLM. After that, we'll see it in action, unpack how it can boost student thinking, and finally, we'll focus on what is absolutely the most important piece of this puzzle, the teacher's role as the architect of it all. All right, let's jump into section 1, AI in the classroom. And yeah, this isn't some what-if scenario we're talking about for the future. These tools are already here, they're in the hands of our students, and that means the questions we ask as educators have to evolve right along with them.
You know, getting students to really think deeply like a scientist, that's one of the toughest parts of being a teacher. It's a skill that can take years for an educator to master. And now, AI just adds this whole new layer to that challenge. So the question becomes, how do we use these incredible tools to spark genuine curiosity instead of them just becoming a shortcut to the answer?
So if the problem with most AI is that it's just too big, too broad, then what's the answer? Well, that brings us to section 2 and a look at a different kind of AI. This one isn't designed to find just any answer, but to help you reason with specific information. So let's meet NotebookLM. And this slide, this really gets to the core of what makes it so different. On the left, you've got your standard chatbot. It's pulling info from the entire messy, wild internet, and sometimes it even just makes stuff up. But NotebookLM on the right is a whole different beast. It's source-grounded, which is a fancy way of saying it only uses the documents you give it, your articles, your lab notes, your data. It's not an answer engine, it's a reasoning tool. It basically creates a safe, secure sandbox for doing real scientific work. So what's the tech behind this? It's something called a Multimodal Large Language Model, or MLLM. I know, it sounds super complicated, but stick with me. It just means the AI can understand more than only text. It can look at images, diagrams, charts, and data tables all at the same time. And for science, which lives and breathes in all of those formats, this is an absolute game changer. And the toolkit itself is getting bigger and better. NotebookLM can now act as a personal study partner. It can generate custom reports, flashcards, even little quizzes, all based on your sources. It can also create audio summaries, which is great for reviewing material. These aren't just little add-ons. They're tools for much deeper engagement. Now for section 3. Look, theory is one thing, but how does this stuff actually play out in a real classroom? Let's put this toolkit to the test and see how it works in a couple of very different subjects, physics and biology. All right, let's circle back to that first question we asked about light. Just imagine you're a physics teacher, and you're trying to help your students wrap their heads around its bizarre dual nature. So the teacher goes in and very deliberately picks out a few key, high-quality sources to upload into NotebookLM. Maybe some of Einstein's original writing on the photoelectric effect, a modern article explaining interference, and a really clear diagram of that famous double-slit experiment. And just look at the kind of question this lets a student ask. They're not just saying, hey, what's the answer? They're asking the AI to analyze the evidence for them, to compare how each of their sources explains the problem. NotebookLM can then point out where Einstein's writing and the other articles might agree or even disagree, which forces the student to weigh that evidence and think critically. That is science. Okay, let's jump from physics over to biology. What about a biology lab, where a group of students is trying to figure out why their photosynthesis experiment didn't quite go according to plan?
This is where it gets really cool. Students can upload, well, everything from their experiment, their written reports, the raw data they collected, and even a photo they snapped of their lab station. This is that multimodal power we were just talking about, right in action. And then they can ask a really thoughtful, reflective question like this one. The tool can analyze the text in their report, the numbers in their data, and even the image of their setup to suggest potential sources of error. Maybe it spots some uneven lighting in the photo or inconsistencies in the data. It's not just giving them the answer, it's giving them things to discuss to help strengthen their own scientific judgment. And you can totally see how this idea just branches out into other areas, right? Imagine a chemistry student uploading a bunch of reaction data and asking the AI to come up with questions about it, or an environmental science class uploading maps and soil data to help pull all that different information into one strong evidence-based argument. All right, so we've seen the nitty-gritty examples. For section 4, let's pull the camera back and look at the bigger picture here. When you use a tool like this day in and day out, how does it fundamentally change the way students think?
Well, a tool like this can really create some major shifts in how students learn. One, it can help teachers spot student misconceptions really early on. Two, it can instantly visualize complex data. Three, it encourages that kind of self-reflection we saw in the biology lab. And maybe the most important thing is, number 4, it helps students connect the dots between different ways of seeing an idea, like how a formula, a graph, and something happening in the real world are all actually telling the exact same story.
And, all of this naturally leads us to our last section, which is honestly the most important one. With all of this amazing technology at our fingertips, what is the role of the human teacher in all of this? Well, it turns out it's more important than ever. I mean, this quote really says it all. The key takeaway is simple. AI is an incredible assistant, but it is not a replacement for the teacher. The teacher is the architect of the entire learning experience. They're the one who frames the compelling questions, who curates the source materials, and who builds a classroom culture where genuine curiosity always wins out over just getting the easy answer. Of course, being a good architect here also means being smart and careful. We need to teach students to always verify what the AI tells them against sources they trust. We have to handle their data ethically and with privacy in mind, and we have to help them avoid becoming too reliant on the tool. And most importantly, teachers can model a healthy scientific skepticism, questioning the tool just like they'd question any other source of information. When it all comes down to it, this is the mindset we want. We need to frame AI as a partner in reasoning. It's a powerful collaborator that can help us organize our evidence and spot patterns, but it's not a shortcut that lets us skip the hard but really rewarding work of actually thinking for ourselves. So look, this technology is here. It's becoming a part of our classrooms. The question isn't if we'll use it anymore, it's how. AI is becoming your new lab partner. The real experiment, the one that truly matters, is deciding how you're going to guide it.